In a small town in West Africa, there was a young boy named Udoka. His parents mysteriously passed away in their sleep after consuming a meal that had been given to them as a gift. Udoka, who was only 5 years old at the time, couldn't identify the people who had given his parents the meal. However, he was fortunate not to have eaten with them that night. After his parents' death, Udoka was taken in by a native herbal doctor, where he met Namdi, who became his best friend. Eventually, Udoka was forced to live with his aunt, Choba, as he had no other relatives. Choba was a cruel and harsh woman who had never had children before her husband passed away. People believed her heart was so dark that it prevented her from having children. Choba treated Udoka with disdain and cruelty, like a slave, but he had no choice but to endure it, as he had nowhere else to go. Udoka was made to do all sorts of chores, including farming, while his aunt did nothing at home. One evening, Choba sent Udoka to the market when it was nearly dark to buy some food items for her. When Udoka arrived at the market, most of the stalls were already closed for the day, making it difficult for him to find the items his aunt had requested. When he finally returned home with only a few of the items, it was late, and Choba was furious. She began to beat him in anger and sent him to the forest to fetch firewood as punishment. Udoka, terrified of the evil spirits he had heard lurked in the forest at night, pleaded with his aunt to let him wait until morning. But Choba insisted that Udoka must go to the forest that night, or she would starve him for a whole week. Reluctantly, Udoka went to the forest with a cutlass to fetch firewood. It was pitch dark, but the moonlight guided his way, and the forest was eerily quiet, save for the chirping of insects and the whistling of birds. Udoka was frightened and gripped his cutlass tightly, ready to defend himself against any danger. As he ventured deeper into the forest in search of a suitable tree branch to cut, he began to hear someone singing in the distance. The song was melodious, and the voice was beautiful and soothing. Udoka was shocked to hear anyone in the forest at that hour. He followed the sound and arrived at a large tree. The atmosphere around the tree was different, but Udoka could hear the voice clearly coming from the tree. The voice sang, "Trust only yourself, for foolish is the one who trusts too easily." Udoka was mesmerized by the voice, the way the words rhymed, and the wisdom they imparted. He sat down in front of the tree and listened until he almost lost track of time. Remembering that his aunt was waiting for him, Udoka hurriedly gathered some firewood and returned home. That night, Udoka couldn't stop thinking about the singing tree. He wondered if he had been hallucinating, or if his fear had driven him to imagine things. The next day, Udoka decided to visit the same tree during the day to confirm what he had experienced. He deliberately did not gather enough firewood, so that his wicked aunt would send him back into the forest at night. As expected, Choba forced Udoka to fetch more firewood when it was late. Udoka took his cutlass and went into the forest. As he approached the tree from the previous night, he heard the singing again, but this time, it was a different song. The lyrics expressed deep regret and sorrow. Whenever Udoka ventured into the forest at night, the trees sang a different song, but they all conveyed feelings of pain and remorse. Often, Udoka would sit at the base of the tree and listen to the song before returning home. Other times, he would rest against the tree and let the music soothe him. One day, Udoka decided to tell his friend Namdi about the singing tree. Namdi was the son of the herbal doctor Udoka had lived with after his parents' death. However, Namdi couldn't visit Udoka often because Choba forbade him from seeing his friends. When Udoka told Namdi about the singing tree and the sorrowful songs it sang, Namdi thought deeply and concluded that there must be a troubled spirit involved. He prepared a paste from some local herbs and gave it to Udoka. He instructed Udoka to rub the paste on his eyelids the next time he went to the forest at night. "This paste will allow you to see beyond the physical," Namdi explained. "But be careful, for there are spirits that do not wish to be seen." Udoka, curious, asked how he would know which spirits didn't want to be seen. Namdi reassured him, "You will know when you see them." The next evening, Udoka sneaked into the forest at night, once more to visit the tree. As usual, the tree was singing a different song. Udoka carefully applied the paste to his eyelids and, to his astonishment, saw a beautiful young girl sitting at the foot of the tree, crying as she sang. Udoka realized that it wasn't the tree that was singing, but the girl. He approached her cautiously, and though she noticed his approach, she did nothing, assuming that, like everyone else, Yudoka couldn't see her. When Yudoka asked why she was crying, the girl was stunned. She didn't believe that Yudoka could see her until he repeated the question. "You can see me?" she asked in disbelief. "Yes, I can. Please tell me why you are crying," Yudoka replied. The girl, who introduced herself as Adobe, explained that she had been betrayed by someone she trusted, her uncle, who had led her into the forest and killed her. Since then, she had been bound to the tree, unable to leave its vicinity. She sang every night, hoping someone would hear her and save her. Yudoka felt deep sympathy for Adobe, but had to leave to gather firewood. He promised to visit her every night, and from then on, Yudoka always returned to the forest to see Adobe. They became close friends, sharing their sorrows and supporting each other. Over time, Yudoka grew increasingly fond of Adobe, and their bond deepened. One day, Yudoka heard a town crier announcing a singing competition to be held at the palace in a few weeks. The competition was organized by the king every 10 years in honor of the queen, who loved music. The winner would receive a grand reward, a house and farmland for a man, or any wish granted for a woman. Yudoka mentioned the competition to Adobe, expressing his wish to participate, but lamented that he couldn't sing. Adobe offered to help. "If you want to enter the competition, I can possess your body and sing for you," she explained. Yudoka was confused by her offer, but trusted Adobe and gave her permission. When Adobe tried to possess his body and leave the forest, her spirit was drawn back to the tree, leaving Yudoka bewildered. Understanding what Adobe had meant, Yudoka sought Namdi's help again. Namdi suggested that something belonging to Adobe might be buried near the tree, and if found, it would allow her spirit to accompany Yudoka wherever he went. That night, Yudoka returned to the tree and dug at its base, where Adobe usually sat. He uncovered some beads buried deep in the ground. When he showed them to Adobe, she confirmed that they were hers. Yudoka wore the beads on his ankle, and together, they walked away from the tree. This time, Adobe's spirit was not drawn back. She followed Yudoka home, although no one else could see her. Adobe watched as Yudoka endured daily suffering and maltreatment from his aunt, but there was little she could do to help. However, their bond continued to grow stronger. As the singing competition approached, rumors spread that Yudoka was mad, as people often saw him talking to himself with no one around. When the competition finally began, Yudoka's aunt ordered him to stay at home, ensuring he had plenty of chores to keep him busy. But Yudoka secretly went to the competition, concealing his face with a mask, and joined the other participants. When it was Yudoka's turn, Adobe possessed his body and sang instead. The song was so emotional and beautifully delivered that it moved everyone to tears. The audience was amazed by Yudoka's performance, though they were unaware that it was actually Adobe who was singing. After the competition, Yudoka was declared the winner, but before he could claim his prize, the queen summoned him to her chambers. She questioned him about the song and where he had learned it. Yudoka, confused, explained that he had learned it from a friend he met in the forest. The queen, upon hearing the name Adobe, was shocked and demanded more information. Yudoka showed her the beads, and the queen, recognizing them, broke down in tears. She revealed that Adobe was her long-lost daughter, who had been missing for nearly a decade. The queen asked Yudoka to take her to the place where he found the beads. When they arrived at the tree, the queen saw Adobe's ghost after Yudoka applied the herbal paste to her eyes. Overcome with emotion, the queen tried to embrace her daughter, but her arms passed through Adobe's spirit. Adobe revealed that she had been killed by the queen's elder brother, Mafa, who then buried her under the tree. Enraged by the revelation, the queen ordered Mafa's arrest. He confessed to his crimes,